This week on Jersey Matters, it's beginning to look a lot like an Omicron Christmas. We'll talk with Dr. Judith Lightfoot about the new variant. With a labor shortage and a supply chain problem, sales at retail stores are up. We'll talk with a very happy John Holub from the New Jersey Retail Merchant Association. And we'll take you to an elaborate Christmas lights show in Bergen County that is sure to brighten up your Christmas weekend. Hello and welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. The Omicron variant of COVID-19 sure is trying to be the Grinch that stole Christmas. Here's Dr. Judith Lightfoot, infectious disease specialist at Rowan University. Doctor, thanks so much for your time today. It's an important time to talk to you. Businesses are making decisions, schools are making decisions, families are making decisions about holiday gatherings. Tell us, there's so much out there, so much information and misinformation about Omicron. Give us the details. Tell us what we should be concerned about now.
Well, Omicron is real. As you may learn, or we've all learned from Dr. Fauci just yesterday about the one death in Texas, 52-year-old gentleman. We are not certain as to whether he was vaccinated or not. As what was previously stated, we really thought it was nothing we had to worry about early on. For where this variant and its origin is, where it's come from. What was it, Thanksgiving weekend, that Sunday, when we learned of just 3 cases in the United States. And now we're seeing it's becoming a predominant number of cases throughout the United States. We still have Delta, which is the predominant variant, and which is leading to our hospitalizations. But we also have Omicron, which is replicating very rapidly. And the turnover of its viral replication, meaning how fast a virus can make copies of itself, which is almost within 48 hours, 2 days. It used to be 72 hours, now in about 48 hours. But we're seeing rapid viral transmission, meaning you can't see it, smell it, but the symptomatology, what patients are experiencing. Headache seems to be the most common prodromal effect. I have a headache. I may have rhinorrhea, meaning my nose is running. I may have injected sclera. I may have a sore throat. I may have symptoms that are most commonly associated with common cold with a headache. We're seeing this among the vaccinated and unvaccinated. And what's happening is that even our stores surrounding us, our home testing kits are running scarce. Many of our local apothecaries, CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, are running out of test kits on our store shelves. So, and Rowan Medicine here, we have testing in which we offer to employees who may have been exposed, or urgent care centers are running out. But what we're finding out is that that screening test, which allows them to know the rapid testing, which they'll know in a very few seconds as to whether they're positive, is often positive. And then we follow that up with PCR testing, preliminary chain reaction testing for more confirmatory tests. Whether you have been vaccinated or not, those individuals have to be quarantined and then retested if they're vaccinated within 5 to 7 days. If they have no symptoms, the good thing, they can come out of that situation and go back to work. But let's just say if you are positive and you have a family member, whether they're vaccinated or not, and you're caring for that individual, well, I recommend that you stay home until that family member is cared for, because chances are you're constantly in constant contact with them. Even though they're in your home, they may be separated from you, but someone's got to care for them besides just putting the food outside the door.
Yeah, no, I get it. You're at Rowan University right now. I know universities are making decisions about what they should do now. I'm certain you've had discussions about this. Have you come to a decision?
Yes, I'm a part of a task force. It's an infectious disease specialist on a task force. We just broke for winter break. So our students that finish up their exams are going home. So that leads us to being able to solve, what do we do when the students come back in 2 weeks? Well, many of them travel. Home is not just New Jersey, although it is for predominant number of students, but even that, what is their circle like? So we're asking students to, number one, when they're home, they're in their close circles, make sure that they themselves are tested before going around others, and for family members in which they come in close contact, their circle, so to speak. If they're traveling, they should have a test. But certainly before they come back, we're discussing this among the medical students before bringing them back on campus, that we're discussing whether we should test them before they come back in the classroom setting, or among individuals who are already screened and we know in fact that they are negative. Because it's a big concern because of holiday breeding. We've seen what has happened post Thanksgiving holiday time of individuals who are positive, then they come back in the mix for those who did not travel. So it's a big public health concern, and certainly a concern in a medical environment. Obviously, some of these students go on to clerkships, hospital office, doctors' offices, and we want to make sure that everybody, our medical students and those in which they have the privilege to serve, are fine.
Sharif El-Nahal put out a startling statistic about University Hospital. Sharif El-Nahal is the CEO and president. And that is, when they first started getting Omicron cases, 49% were fully vaccinated. And now that number's down to 34, but that is still a significant percentage. You touched on that a little bit too, that there's a lot of breakthrough cases. Given that there are breakthrough cases, what would you suggest to people about family gatherings?
I say you need to limit them. I think if anyone this holiday season, and I realize the holiday season is quite extensive, I really feel before you gather, you should pre-test. Everyone should be screened at least 24 hours before they have that family gathering, just to make sure you're safe. If you are positive, you should not go to or attend that family gathering. You should stay home and isolate. You're only putting yourself and others at risk if you decide to go through with it. We are seeing here in South Jersey, I just got off a GMAC, which is Graduate Medical Education Committee meeting, for our four surrounding hospitals, Jefferson South and the Virtue Our Lady of Lourdes. Both of our GME heads and DIOs of those systems are reporting that the hospital census are going up and the acuity of all of those patients are going up. This is where my medical residents actually rotate through these systems, are rotating through the critical care units and have responsibility. That the patients are coming in, they are a lot sicker. Now, I don't know if all of them are vaccinated or not. Still, Delta is the predominant organism, but I'm sure some of these are Omicron cases. However, we have not speciated them out as of yet.
Is it true that Omicron, although it is incredibly infectious, the cases so far have not been as severe, all but the one death?
Yes, as what has been reported, that the symptoms are mild, people are becoming infected, and chances are those who are vaccinated can become infected, whether they're masked or not, is what is being currently reported. However, I think we need to take every precaution as possible, as much as we can. Don't convene in large gatherings. If you have to wear your mask, pick times that aren't crowded. If you're going out shopping during a holiday season, if you have to pick up food, don't convene, in certain public spaces. Pick it up, carry it home if you can. Right now, this is a very contagious virus. Although the symptoms may be mild, but how mild are they for you? What are your comorbidities? What other disease states do you harbor? Now, the fact that you're not going to die from it, so what we report because of the symptoms may be mild. I don't know the particulars of the one death which was reported last evening, whether the person was vaccinated or not. I do know it was a gentleman in his early 50s. But mild is one thing, death is another. And I'm sure all of your listeners will want to remain above ground. Testing is a mandate. If you are positive from your home kit, stay home, do us all a favor. If you need us, then contact your medical personnel or get to where you need to be cared for. But we all have to be very responsible in this critical time of need. We are going through, I think right now, another wave, and we'll just have to see how this replicates over the next few weeks.
Right. That's the next few weeks is critical. Thank you so much, Doctor. Extremely valuable information. Have a great holiday. Dr. Judith Lightfoot, Rowan University Medicine. Still to come, an end of the year push to pass legislation in Trenton that will make our roads safer. We'll explain next. Welcome back to Jersey Matters. There is legislation right now being debated in Trenton that requires teen drivers to be better prepared before they get behind the wheel. AAA is actively advocating for this legislation. Here is Robert Sinclair, Public Affairs Manager for AAA Northeast. Well, thanks so much for your time. I hope you're going to have a great holiday. Let's start with the AAA advocating for new legislation in New Jersey. What exactly will this legislation do?
The legislation would mandate 50 hours of practice driving for young drivers, 16 and 17-year-old who have their learner's permit. It would also lengthen the time that they have to have their learner's permit to a year. They would not be able to get their full license until they had their permit for a year, and that 50 hours of supervised driving. Consider that New Jersey is one of only 3 states in the country that does not mandate supervised driving, and they're right there with Arkansas and Mississippi. And despite the fact that the statistics show overwhelmingly that younger drivers, 16 and 17-year-olds, have crashes far in disproportion to their representation in the driving population. So when they get these practice hours, and 50 hours really should be the minimum, the more hours, the better. When they get this practice, it makes them better drivers. Young drivers have problems because they lack the skills and the experience to be good drivers. And when you make good young drivers, you get good adult drivers and good older drivers. So there's a cascading positive effect when young drivers get this training. So we hope that the legislature will pass it during this lame duck session.
I know you've been following the legislation. Where does it stand now?
It's come out of committees in both houses, and there have been hearings, but and as far as we know, it's not scheduled for a vote yet. We hope that will happen.
You're hoping it's going to happen before the lame duck session is over. So you only have, when this airs, you'll have a week left, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen this week. So what are the odds? Is there any resistance to it?
Not as far as we know. We've testified as far as the legislation is concerned to really trying to convince the legislators that it behooves them, everybody out on the road, to have these kind of things in place. But I don't know what the holdup is.
It sounds like it would just make the road safer. More importantly, I have 2 teenage boys that are getting ready to drive. I think that every parent in the state would want to make certain that their children are prepared and are as safe as can be when they're on the roads, both from themselves and from other teen drivers. And so I don't understand. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I know you wanted to promote this legislation today. What is the holdup?
It's a good question. I know for a lot of parents, they see their children as getting a license as the opportunity for them to be independent and not have that burden of transporting them around. Young people are involved in a lot of activities. They're going after school, they're doing sports, they're doing tutoring, what have you. And until that youngster gets their own license, it's up to the parent to provide that transportation. I think many parents see that as the opportunity for that youngster to be independent, for them to be on their own, but they have to be prepared. The stats show overwhelmingly that young drivers are going to have crashes, and you really have to prepare them. You have to instill in them the seriousness of driving. Lloyd's of London Insurance Company says you're 25 times more likely to be killed in a car crash than you are in a plane crash. And youngsters, that number goes up even more. And parents have to realize they have to model good driving behavior when they are bringing that infant home from the hospital. There's an interesting public service announcement on the air right now that shows parents texting while they're driving. And then, the youngsters, when they start driving, they text when they drive. You have to teach them the good habits very, very early on so that they can be good drivers. Over the Thanksgiving holiday, from that Wednesday through Sunday of Thanksgiving, there was a doubling in the number of fatal crashes in New Jersey compared to last year. I think that's indicative of what needs to be done in microcosm, and hopefully it will happen in macrocosm, where we get more and better trained youngsters on the road.
Yeah, I have 4 kids, and the scariest moment in my life for each one of them is when they drove, because I have seen the statistics and I know how dangerous it is for young drivers. So I'm sure parents are watching this right now, and they can just call their state legislators, I would believe, or state senators, and say that they want this legislation. Let's move on for a second. We have things closing down again. Schools are going virtual in New Jersey because of Omicron, but it doesn't seem like it keeps people off the roads.
No, I think there's just such a pent-up desire for people to travel, to see friends and family, that they're taking advantage of it. Not a record number, but we're within 92% of the 2019 numbers, which were the record, with 110 million people traveling. 91% of those, or 100 million, are driving. About 2.5 million from New Jersey and 2.1 million will be driving. We're seeing increases in air travel of 184%, with more than 6 million flying. The other category that's not quite there, it's about close to 3 million. That's train, bus, and cruising. And it's the cruising where we're seeing some kind of pullback, I think, as a result of the surge of Omicron. Some of these ships are truly huge. They hold 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people, but those ships start to seem very small if someone is ill, and it starts to spread around very quickly. So we're seeing with AAA as one of the nation's largest leisure travel agencies, we're seeing not cancellations, but shifting of cruise times. A lot of folks are now planning cruises for the spring and summer of 2022. A lot of folks want to go overseas, travel internationally, to take a river cruise, particularly in Germany. But in the U.S., we're cruising out of the East Coast, the Gulf Coast, the West Coast, and we like to go to the Caribbean. So that's kind of being delayed. Many of the companies are being very generous in that they're saying that you can change, no problem, no fees, no change fees or anything like that, and book for next year. But other than that one category, folks are really getting out there and traveling for this holiday.
The concern, getting back to the cars for a second, is when you have an increase in traffic in cars, that means you have an increase in gatherings and family gatherings. And when you have an increase in family gatherings, if they're not being canceled, there will be another surge. It's inevitable over the next couple of weeks. So I know your statistics are based on what's happened so far. Let's see what happens over the next week, and let's see if those numbers go down a little bit. It's always great to talk to you. Good luck on your legislation. I hope it works out for you. Robert Sinclair, AAA Northeast. Next on Jersey Matters.
Many of us are missing those long summer days right about now, but for some people it's more serious, with the decrease in sunlight triggering a condition known as seasonal affective disorder. I'm Sherry Carabin, and coming up on Jersey Matters, I'll tell you more about this health issue, its symptoms and treatments.
Welcome back. Do you feel out of sorts, even depressed this time of year? It could be something called seasonal affective disorder that happens like clockwork every year this time of year. Jersey Matters' Sherry Carabin has more.
Larry, the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder can range from depression and sleeping problems to changes in appetite or weight. They generally begin in late fall or early winter and can last for months. The good news is, once the condition is diagnosed, it can be treated.
I have to push myself to do things, knowing that it gets darker earlier. I really have to think about doing stuff once it becomes dark outside, and the sleep pattern is all messed up.
Union City resident Miriam Delatorre talks about what it's like to live with seasonal affective disorder, also known as SAD.
Seasonal affective disorder is a subtype of a type of depression. Now, something that these individuals develop where they feel out of sorts and they feel symptoms of varying amounts of depression, particularly during the winter. But come spring and summer, most of these folks are back to being perfectly normal. A small handful of them sort of have symptoms of anxiety that can occur during the spring and the early part of the summer, but most of them, once the winter is transitioned off, feel better and come back to their usual selves.
In addition to feeling depressed, patients with seasonal affective disorder may lose interest in activities they once enjoyed, have difficulty concentrating, or feel sluggish or agitated. The symptoms usually begin in late fall or early winter as the daylight hours decrease and we spend more time in the dark.
Lack of light has a lot to do with it. Lack of light has to do with it to the point that when we've had studies done, they've noticed that the incidence of something like seasonal affective disorder in our part of the world where we live can be up to 2%. But in folks that live in, say, Finland, in Alaska, as you get away from the equator, the incidence could be as high as 10%. And it all has to do with light, because obviously in our part of the world, the sun sets early, but in their part of the world, they probably see no more than 4 hours of sunlight all day long.
In Delatorre's case, she started noticing the symptoms about 2 years ago. Describe what it feels like as the time goes on.
The depression is there. I seem to try to work it out, but I do feel like it is getting worse.
She's not currently in treatment, but is exploring the options, including one of the most popular ones, light therapy.
The most important type of treatment that I think and that I like to prescribe is light therapy, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's the lack of light. So the question is, how to expose them to bright light. Bright light could be, what we have here in this room, but this light sometimes is not potent enough. So they have photochromatic lights that are commercially available. They look like little boxes, and the patient can sit in front of the box, keep it at face level, have all that light get into the eye. It's not ultraviolet, it doesn't damage the retina.
Dr. Mata says most people find light therapy works best first thing in the morning, while others use it at night. She says some patients also benefit from cognitive behavioral therapy, and a small number may need to go on antidepressants.
I classify this into mild, moderate, and severe. Not that there's a classification, but I know folks that experience it once or twice and then either adapt to it or don't think twice about it because it's not so severe. We're focusing here on the folks that have it severe and have it annually and yearly, who almost anticipate this happening. So if it's the severe variety, I have no issues with using a little bit of an antidepressant on some of these folks.
But before any treatment can begin, the condition needs to be diagnosed. Doctors say if you're experiencing increasingly severe depression or mood fluctuations that seem to come and go with the changing of the seasons, it may be time to talk to your primary care doctor or contact a sleep specialist. Reporting from Jersey City, this is Sherry Carabin for Jersey Matters.
Thank you, Sherry. Still to come on Jersey Matters.
December really is the season of giving, and we met with one New Jersey family whose gift was brought right to their doorstep. We'll show you exactly what it was coming up next on Jersey Matters.
Welcome back. When you say the words Make-A-Wish Foundation, you know a dream is about to come true. Kimberly Kravitz has the story of a 7-year-old boy in New Jersey who made a wish, and, well, then I'll let Kimberly tell you the rest of the story. Kimberly.
Children deserve the joy of the holiday season, like the young man I am about to introduce you to. 7-year-old Nathan Garcia, who is battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But little does he know that he's in for a great Christmas surprise, all thanks to the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Is this the best gift you've ever received?
Yes.
We're here today for the greatest reason of all reasons, to grant a wish.
A wish for a very sick little boy. During the time that Nathan was battling his diagnosis, he turned to video games, specifically his Nintendo Switch, as an outlet to help through the lonely days at the hospital.
That's what kept him distracted through every procedure. Every time they would put him under to give him his spinal tap, that's how he'll go under, with his Switch in his hand.
So when he was asked what his one wish would be, of course what he wished for was the coveted gaming console that he wanted, the Nintendo Switch. We were excited to be able to work on getting his wish granted.
During this holiday season, the Make-A-Wish New Jersey Foundation has partnered with Wayne Subaru for the Share the Love campaign, allowing more than 2,700 children nationwide to have their wishes come true.
We were contacted about Nathan's wish. We had hoped to be able to do his wish grant at the dealership today, but because of COVID and everything and keeping him safe, they decided to do it here at his house.
Michael Dominic of Make-A-Wish New Jersey tells me that the COVID pandemic never stopped them from getting their job done.
In the world we live in, things changed along the way, how we would deliver Nathan's wish. But one thing that never changed was we were going to deliver his wish. And we sit back and we're inspired by these wish kids because we realize these are fears and anxieties that they've dealt with dealing with their critical illnesses well before we ever had the chance to experience it ourselves.
Yeah, he's a happy kid. He's always been very happy. Even going through it, he was always happy. He always had a smile on his face. He's just been very, very brave, very strong.
Christmas cheer took over in this neighborhood of Passaic. There was a smile on Nathan's face from ear to ear.
Yeah, we are. We're very blessed. We're happy we're going to spend another holiday with him. We're happy that he's okay now. We're happy that we're just happy he doesn't have to go through it anymore. And we're just praying that he lives a healthy life after, you know?
The Make-A-Wish Foundation has raised over $26 million in donations, all thanks to the Subaru Share the Love event. For now, reporting from Passaic for Jersey Matters, I'm Kimberly Kravitz, and happy holidays.
Welcome back to Jersey Matters. One thing is for certain. Omicron is not stopping people from shopping this holiday season. Here is John Holub, president of the New Jersey Retail Merchants Association, to explain. John, when I see your face, I know it must be Christmas. And that's why it's nice to have that Christmas tree in the background. This is the time of year where we check in to see how retailers are doing, especially in New Jersey. How are they doing?
Actually, they're doing well. Analysts right now are predicting potentially a record-breaking year for retailers.
Wow.
So we're very encouraged. We're cautiously optimistic. Obviously, there's a lot of economic headwinds, a lot of challenges we're facing right now, but everybody is very optimistic.
Yeah, let's talk about the economic headwinds, because that's where the surprise comes, because all you hear about is supply chain problems, inflation, people worried about going out. And now you're talking about a record for retailers. It doesn't seem to compute.
It doesn't. And I agree with you 100%. It's amazing. I mean, we're looking at the largest price increases we've seen in 40 years. So just the inflation challenge alone, you would think would be a major indicator that we're going to have significant challenges. But consumers are still willing to spend, and I think being cooped up for the last couple of years might have a little something to do with it. But from all economic indicators, I mean, right now in the first 11 months of the year, we're up almost 14% year over year in sales. So things are trending upwards, and there's no reason to believe that we're not going to end the year very strong.
With the 14%, could that be inflation?
Well, no, it's a combination of things, but no, it's total spend, but it's an increase in sales year over year. So more people are spending more.
You know why I'm asking?
It's not just an inflation thing. No, that's factored into it as well.
Oh, really? Because if the same products were bought last year that are bought this year, they could be 14% more expensive this year, and that would be the reason that you see an increase in the money coming into the retailers. But so how is, you said that's factored in? Explain that.
Yep. Well, no, just I think just in the calculation that's done that, inflationary price increases are factored in. So this is just a straight up year-over-year increase in sales, 14%. And I will say though, for the holiday season, which is usually November, December, part of January, they're predicting anywhere from an 8 to an 11% increase. And even on the low end of that scale, even on the 8% range, just for that little period of time, the holiday season, that's still record-breaking numbers.
Are you talking about just New Jersey?
No, those are national numbers. Unfortunately, we never have Jersey-specific numbers, but we tend to, from what I can tell, and been having doing this for as long as I have, we tend to trend very close to the national average.
When you talk to retailers in New Jersey, and I'm sure you talk to them across the country, especially other people that do what you do, what are they saying? What are their concerns? What are the biggest problems they're having? Because there's so many problems that you could potentially list: not having enough employees, supply chain problems, inflation. But and as we talked about, it's shocking that you're doing so well. What do they say is their biggest concern?
Yeah, actually, depends on what day you ask them. I mean, it really is, because, as you said, there are so many issues. I mean, there's labor shortages have been a huge, huge concern. And that might be one of the number one thing that's kind of out there, and you hear the most. It's been very difficult to find people to come and work. That's just been, and that's not just exclusive to retail. All industries are having that problem. So labor shortage is probably the number one issue day to day. But again, the supply chain is always, the disruptions out there are always hanging in the back. The inflation is obviously a major concern. These new COVID variants, and that seems to be the headline every day. So we're just worried about, maybe rolling back the ability for people to get out and about freely. So it's things like that. It's amazing, and I'm shocked by the resiliency of our industry. I mean, I always knew they were a resilient group, but they've just proved to me what an amazing group of folks they are to be able to overcome all these challenges. I mean, I don't ever remember having this many significant number of challenges, and really have been able to overcome them. And thankfully, the consumer is coming out and shopping, and that's, I guess, the number one thing. Not only
overcome it, but grow. I do think there is this new spirit of support for retailers because of what we all went through the last couple of years, and people are finally getting to go out, and they want to go shop again. They want to do it in person. They want to get back to some kind of normalcy, and some kind of normalcy is being in a department store, or being in a small business, or being in a boutique. I think that's what you're seeing, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, I could agree with you more there. I think there definitely has been some pent up demand, and I think part of it too is people, unfortunately, it might be to the detriment of some other industries. Some people might not be going out to eat dinner as often, and they might not be traveling as much, even though, you said the AAA numbers, you're seeing a significant increase. But over the last, 18, 19 months, people haven't been going on as many vacations. So people do have a little bit more, and I think there's still some residual stimulus money floating around out there. So I think there's a whole number of factors that people might have a few extra disposable dollars in their pocket. And they do, as you said, I think they do seem to be willing to go out and spend at their local retailer.
Well, it's wonderful news. Hope you have great holidays. I see one of your Christmas trees. I understand you have more than that. I hope you and your family have a great Christmas.
Same to you. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
John Holub, the Retail Merchants Association. Next on Jersey Matters.
A popular holiday light show display is now in its 6th year here in Paramus. And coming up next, we'll tell you the heartwarming story of how it all started.
Hi everybody, I'm Nor'easter Nick, and I'm not really the guy that you want to hear from or see if you're a fan of cold and snow, because I am not going to tell you what you want to hear. We forecast based on facts and what's most realistic, not what we want to happen, not what our feelings are telling us, because that's not how you do things. I'm the biggest snow lover out there, and this is a very disappointing pattern, but we got to deal with it, right? We've got high pressure down to the south. Our temperature anomaly is well above average going into the next 6 to 10 days, and that will likely continue into the new year. If you want cold and snow, you got to fly out to the Pacific Northwest. The above average temperature pattern is not going anywhere anytime soon for us, because we've got that Pacific North America pattern in its negative phase. That pumps the jet stream up into Canada, and the storm track is just to the north and west of our region, which equates to just plain old rain. There is a chance as we go into mid-January things will shift around a little bit and the colder air comes down, but if that doesn't happen, it's a mundane winter. I'm Nor'easter Nick for Jersey Matters.
All right, thank you, Nick. For the past 6 years, a Bergen County man has been using his home to put on an elaborate light show. And the reason behind this yearly tradition will truly warm your heart. Our Jennifer Marin has the story.
Larry, this holiday light show here in Paramus is quite the hit. In fact, the owners tell me that some nights they'll have 100 cars lined up on the block just to watch the holiday show. And all of this started with a promise made during a difficult time. In April of 2014, John Russo's life took an unexpected turn when he was diagnosed with throat cancer.
Oh yeah, it's a wake-up call. It's a real wake-up call. You realize you better start doing everything you wanted to do because you're not going to get a chance to do it.
John began his battle to survive alongside his longtime girlfriend, Tony. In December of 2014, while John was undergoing chemo and radiation, Tony says he somehow found the strength to make her a special promise.
So he was on the couch, kind of out of it, you know, blankets, pillows, whatnot. And I put on the Great American Christmas Light Fight. And he was kind of woke up a little bit because I'm jumping all over the couch, I'm going crazy. And he said to me, you know, what's going on? I said, you got to see this. It's a Great American Christmas Light Fight, you know, and he saw my amusement with lights. I mean, I was going crazy. And he turned to me and he said, you know something? He said, if I beat this, he said, you'll get your lights.
In March of 2015, John received his first cancer-free scan and began the journey to fulfilling his promise.
Right away, I started buying stuff. As soon as they said I was cured.
But the road to this holiday spectacular came with a learning curve.
I had to learn computers because I knew nothing about computers. I learned where to get the lights and the pixels, and you get into these groups online and on Facebook, and everybody helps everybody.
2021 marks the 6th year of John's Holiday Lights tradition, and every year comes with a new surprise.
As it gets bigger, I try to add some new props every year, and so far this year I ended up adding 5.
Also new this year, John and Tony teamed up with their local police department to collect toys for children in need.
We did great. We got close to 100 presents, and we see now that we can do something for the community every year. So we'll continue.
Throughout the holiday season, Lodger Court is filled with cars that make their way over to enjoy the 40-minute show. Dory Haberman says it's become a yearly tradition.
It started when they were like little toddlers, and we'd throw them in their car seat. We'd map out itinerary of houses, but Lodger Court has always been on the list.
And for John and Tony, the community's reaction means the world.
I love listening to the kids outside screaming and yelling. That's the best part, it really is.
One little boy sent us a letter last year and put a $5 bill in it to help pay for our electric bill.
As for John's plan for next year's lights,
I got to spread out. I may try to encroach on the neighbor's yard next year.
a space worth sharing.
I'm sure they would be okay with that.
Yeah, he would. We've talked about it.
To continue a tradition dedicated to celebrating life. Now, if you'd like to see the Holiday Light Show in person, John and Tony plan to keep it up until January 1st here at 181 Lodger Court. For now, reporting in Paramus for Jersey Matters, I'm Jennifer Marin.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Up next on Jersey Matters.
I'm Phil Andrews, and coming up on Jersey Matters, I'll tell you why Hollywood continues to lay foundation here in the Garden State.
Welcome back. Everybody's heard the phrase, go west, young man. Well, when it comes to making movies, Jersey Matters' Phil Andrews tells us it's now chic to go east to New Jersey.
Well, Larry, I think that when most people think about movie making, they think about Hollywood. But, you know, before there was La La Land, New Jersey was the epicenter of cinema. As a matter of fact, it was Thomas Edison and William Dixon who built the first video recording device in 1892. Then just 1 year later, built the first production studio here in West Orange. As you can see, it was a very modest in size, but still big enough to shoot many silent motion pictures and other short films. Since then, well, hundreds of movies have been filmed here in New Jersey. More recently, Steven Spielberg chose the streets of Patterson to shoot a remake of West Side Story. Also recently filmed here, The Many Saints of Newark, which was shot where else? Newark, in addition to Bloomfield, Jersey City, and Patterson.
West Side Story and The Many Saints of Newark both left millions and millions of dollars in the economy. West Side Story alone, approximately $20 million they left in the state economy. They hired people locally as extras, as crew members. I know they got a lot of crew members from Montclair State University. Not only that, but they bought out the storefronts all around the area where they had 3 city blocks they were working on. It was amazing.
Now, to give you an idea of how the movie-making industry has come full circle back to New Jersey, the Cine Lease production company headquartered in Los Angeles just recently opened a state-of-the-art production facility here at Caven Point near Jersey City, much, of course, to the delight of Governor Phil Murphy.
Over the past 3.5 years, we've ushered in a new era in New Jersey's film, television, and multimedia production. We always knew we had the most important thing, as they say in real estate, location, location, location. I would challenge anyone to find a state that puts every possible setting and backdrop, from urban streets to small town greens, from the Jersey Shore to green forest, within such a close geographic range.
We looked at the proximity to the state of New York and a lot of the talent that lives in Manhattan. We looked at the workforce in New Jersey. We looked at the conversations we were having with the municipalities and the governor of New Jersey. And there was a great eagerness to set up permanent camp in the state of New Jersey. And between that kind of public-private sponsorship support and the historical kind of background and the appetite, it was an easy choice.
And now it looks like the folks at Cine Lease are about to get some competition. That is, if Netflix has its way. The streaming entertainment giant currently has a bid on a large parcel of land at Fort Monmouth. If they are indeed awarded the bid, they plan to build a huge production campus to match the one they built in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
It will be huge, and what a boon for the area it will be if that comes to pass. It's a difficult thing when a Army base closes down, because it is the heart of the economy of a particular area where it's located. And now you have, can you imagine that many stages being located right there in Fort Monmouth? They are going to utilize all the lumber stores and hardware stores and restaurants and such in the area. There'll be a tremendous boon in that regard.
By the way, that Netflix bid at Fort Monmouth will stay open until January 12th, 2022, so that's right around the corner. In Newark, for Jersey Matters, I'm Phil Andrews.
Thank you, Phil. My commentary is next. Just in time for the holidays, President Biden and former President Trump send a little Christmas love to each other. Since he was sworn into office, President Biden has been hypercritical at the way Trump handled the pandemic. Now, out of nowhere, he's giving him credit for producing the vaccine.
Let me be clear. Thanks to the prior administration and our scientific community, America is one of the first countries to get the vaccine.
It was a stunning reversal by Biden, who said this in the past year about Trump and the vaccines.
My predecessor, be very blunt about it, did not do his job in getting ready for the massive challenge of vaccinating hundreds of millions of Americans. He didn't order enough vaccines.
Even Donald Trump was surprised. How do I know? Because he told Fox News that he was surprised, and he said Biden did something very good and it will help heal the country. I'm not so sure about that. No question, it was a complete change of strategy by the Biden White House to try to woo the unvaccinated to finally get a jab. As it turns out, insulting the unvaccinated, like he has been doing the last few months, doesn't work. So now he's saying please.
Let me say again and again and again and again, please get vaccinated.
For the record, that's the first time he said please. he didn't ask over and over again like that. But here's why it's not going to matter that suddenly he's talking nicely and asking nicely, and he's even saying nice things about Donald Trump. You see, the unvaccinated don't care. They even booed Donald Trump himself when he recently said he got a booster shot.
Both the president and I are vaxxed, and did you get the booster?
Yes.
I got it too. Okay, so...
Don't.
Those who aren't vaccinated don't trust the vaccine because they don't trust what they're being told, because they keep getting conflicting information from the government. For instance, President Biden just said that the Omicron variant took him by surprise.
The Omicron virus spread even more rapidly than anybody thought. If I had told you 4 weeks ago that this would spread by a day-to-day basis, it would spread by 50, 100%, 200%, 500%. I think you would have looked at me and said, Biden, what are you drinking? But that's what it did.
Biden's own CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, must be wondering what the president's been drinking. Because just last week, Dr. Walensky says this is exactly what we expected from Omicron. And former CDC director Robert Redfield said months ago that he knew this was going to happen.
I'm going to predict that, within, 2, 3, 4 months, we're going to have another variant, and that variant's going to be more infectious than the Delta variant.
If health officials knew this was going to happen, if the president's own CDC director expected it, then why was the president so surprised? I don't think he really was surprised. I think he just had to act surprised, because that can be the only excuse for being in office for almost a year and not having enough tests for Americans.
Lines for testing growing even longer today. We're hearing of wait times of 3 hours or more as we get one day closer to Christmas.
That was the scene in Washington, D.C., but it's the same in New York and Los Angeles and Boston and Arizona, all across the country. And that's why the president had this news conference in the first place, to announce that the government is making 500 million home tests available that'll be sent to your home upon request. That's why the president had to act surprised, but it didn't work.
On testing, sir, you said we have to do better, but public health officials have been saying for months you need to surge rapid tests for just this moment. Is it a failure that you don't have an adequate amount of tests for everyone to be able to get one if they need one right now?
No, it's not, because COVID is spreading so rapidly. If you notice, it just happened almost overnight.
No, that's not the right answer. Yes, it was a failure, and no, it didn't happen overnight. You want Americans to start trusting you? Start by not denying the obvious. It takes a lot more than sending a love letter to Donald Trump to get the unvaccinated to change their mind. It takes straight answers. It takes the truth. That's what we all want for Christmas. I'm Larry Menti. Talk again soon.